a little bit about the Worcester Islamic Center.
The main purpose of the center is to pray and to teach. So we have 5 daily prayers in the center at the mosque, and on top of that we have classes for students. The reality is that a lot of these kids who are Muslim they're very spread out, between Northborough, Worcester, Shrewsbury, and other parts of the state. So this really gives them one place to come, and when they're together, kids naturally they want to go and they want to play basketball, they want to get in shape. Naturally people get together, they want to eat. And so really, we pray, it takes 5-10 minutes, and then sometimes we'll spend an hour socializing or playing games.
When do you have prayer? You said 5 times a day, but is there also an evening? And does everybody do 5 times a day? I mean, everybody just leaves work 5 times a day here in the American culture? So
that's actually a very good question. You don't actually need to pray 5 times a day in the mosque, but we do offer the prayers 5 times a day. When I go to work, for example, I'll simply just pray in my office. It takes a few minutes and I'm done. When I have free time at night, I like to come out to the center, I socialize, I pray. The center, it's very funny because people, when they think of prayer, they think of church benches and usually a large cross in the middle, right? You'll come into the mosque, you'll see white walls everywhere and just a lot of carpet. So people come in and they scratch their head and they're like, where do we sit? I'm like, you don't sit, you stand, you pray, and then you sit on the floor when you're done.
Men before the women, is there a rule about that, or is it just everybody comes in?
The rule is men pray in the front and women pray towards the back. And I always have this joke of, if you've ever watched like a sitcom or a TV show and people go to church, the whole purpose of going to church is to focus on God and spirituality. And that's very hard to do when you're praying next to a beautiful woman or behind a beautiful woman, and vice versa. And so the separation is really so you can just focus on God in a very practical way.
Okay. Not really, it's not a gender preference type of thing.
No, it's not a gender preference thing, but it's just, Islam is very practical. And in its practicality, we acknowledge that people have weaknesses.
What is the purpose of praying like that 5 times a day?
Funny that you asked that question, because growing up, I always used to wonder what the purpose of praying was. Like, yeah, okay, God said so, I get it, but why do we really pray? And the reality is, it's not just an act of submission to God and an act of obedience, but it's really a reminder. It's very easy to go to church or mosque from Friday to Sunday once a week, and then forget about God on Wednesday. But when you pray 5 times a day, it really helps nurture that spiritual connection with your Lord. Islamically, there's no established form of clergy. So there's no official imams or sheikhs in the religion. But an imam is simply the leader, and the leader is chosen basically who is the most knowledgeable in the religion out of everybody. But there's actually a full-time Islamic school within the center called Al-Huda Academy. And that actually, they teach the children sciences and everything else along with it. Anything, we encourage our children to question. Because what's happening in culture in America in general and in the world actually, you'll notice that kids are taught this is the way it is and don't ask questions. And we believe that's counterproductive, because if faith is from God, if faith is perfect, then they should be able to ask all the questions they want and get answers that will satisfy them. And so that's really what we try to give the children and the adults. Whether we succeed or not, sometimes the whole other question, we're all people, we make mistakes, but religion should be something that you can apply, understand, and reasonably implement into your life without too much difficulty. And that's what really that God in the Quran set out to do. We really have a balance between the worldly life and the spiritual life, as you like to call it. So I'll go to my job, for example, 9 to 5, I'll make my money, I'll buy my car, hopefully I'll get a new one soon, and then I'll go to the mosque and I'll nurture that spiritual connection at the same time. You shouldn't, from a religious perspective, leave this world, and just abandon the beautiful things that we have, but you shouldn't completely rush after it either.
So like a stereotype that you encounter many times.
So one of the, there's actually a few stereotypes that I come across. I'll just list them very quickly if I can. One of them is that Muslims don't believe in God. You believe in Allah, right? And what most people don't understand is that Allah is an Arabic word for God. And that Christians in Egypt and Arabic parts of the world say Allah, right? The second one is that people often don't think you can be Muslim and American, as if Muslim is an identity and a nationality, and it is an identity on some level, but being Muslim and being an American can go hand in hand. I was born and raised here, I'm an American, I'm happy to be an American, I love living in America, but I also love my faith. And the last one really is, people are usually shocked to hear that Muslims believe in Jesus. They're like, you guys don't believe in Jesus, you people believe in Muhammad.
How do you explain to someone how a Muslim looks at Jesus?
Very clear. The Quran is God basically very clearly tells us that Jesus is somebody that we're supposed to look up to, follow his example, love, and that Jesus was just a messenger like Muhammad, like Noah, like Moses, and like Abraham.